Hey everyone, this week delivered two significant developments that impact every single person who receives Social Security benefits across the country. I want to make sure you're hearing about both of them directly from me because the vast majority of people still don't know. Not from the nightly news broadcasts, not from their financial institutions, not from the Social Security Administration itself. The first development was announced on June 9th and involves a deadline that just got pushed closer than it was before. The second was released just yesterday, based on the most recent inflation figures. And it's the kind of update that genuinely adds more dollars to your monthly check. But there's something important attached to it that you really need to understand. Today, I'm walking through both stories in straightforward language, explaining what they actually mean for your personal situation and telling you exactly what steps you should be thinking about. Before we dive in, go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now and hit the notification bell. Everything I'm covering today is breaking as of this very week, and this is precisely the kind of information I stay on top of so you don't have to. Subscribe now and let's get into it. Let's begin with the news that dropped on Monday, June 9th, because this one is essentially about a countdown that just ticked forward. Each year, the Treasury Department and the Social Security Administration jointly release what is known as the Trustees Report. It's an official government document that evaluates the financial condition of Social Security and projects how long the program's funds can sustain current benefit levels. This year's report came out on June 9th, and the number that's making headlines is 2032. That is the year the primary Social Security Retirement Trust Fund, formerly referred to as the OASI Trust Fund, is now projected to exhaust its reserves. Here is why this particular year's date carries more weight than estimates from previous years. The depletion projection moved forward again. In the report released last year, that projected date was the first quarter of 2033. This year's report moved it to the fourth quarter of 2032, a shift of one full quarter earlier. That might seem like a minor adjustment on the surface, but this is now the second year in a row the timeline has moved in the wrong direction. The report itself explains what caused that shift. Legislation signed into law in 2025, commonly referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill, reduced the amount of income tax that Social Security recipients are required to pay on their benefit income. On the surface, that sounds like a positive development for retirees, and in the near term, it genuinely is. However, it also means a smaller stream of tax revenue flowing back into the Social Security system, which speeds up the timeline toward depletion. So what does 2032 actually mean in real terms? This is the part that a lot of media coverage handles poorly by staying vague and unclear. The trust fund running out of reserves does not mean Social Security disappears or stops functioning. The program will continue collecting payroll taxes from every American who is working. What it does mean is that those ongoing payroll tax contributions alone are only expected to cover approximately 78% of everything that beneficiaries are legally owed. Which means that if Congress takes no action between now and that point, benefits would face an automatic reduction of 22% for every single recipient, without exception, regardless of age, physical condition, or how many years someone has been collecting. Based on today's average monthly Social Security benefit of $2,081, a 22% reduction works out to $458 less arriving in your bank account every single month. For someone currently collecting $1,500 per month, that's a loss of $330. For someone receiving $2,500 each month, that's $550 gone. This isn't a forecast about what might eventually happen to somebody else down the road. This is a projection that applies to every person currently receiving Social Security benefits, and it is now fewer than 7 years away. The AARP responded on June 9th with a formal public statement calling on members of Congress to take immediate bipartisan action to address the situation. The American Academy of Actuaries and the Bipartisan Policy Center both released their own analyses within 24 hours of the report, pointing out that the window available for gradual, manageable reform is continuing to shrink, and that every year Congress delays action, the more severe and disruptive the eventual changes will need to be when they finally move forward. So what does all of this mean for you on a practical level, right here and right now? If you are already collecting Social Security, the single most critical thing to understand is that absolutely nothing changes today, tomorrow, or even next year. The current benefit structure is fully funded through 2032 under existing law. This is not a crisis demanding immediate action on your part. What it is information you need in your hands so that when politicians begin talking constantly about Social Security reform over the coming years, and they absolutely will, you will know what the real stakes actually are. A 22% reduction in benefits is not an abstract theoretical figure. It is the mathematically calculated outcome of continued congressional inaction under the law as it currently stands. If you have not yet claimed your Social Security benefits, this report introduces one more variable into the claiming decision you'll eventually need to make. Claiming earlier locks in a benefit level ahead of any potential legislative changes. Waiting until age 70 produces larger monthly payments, but it also means a greater portion of your retirement income is dependent on Congress successfully acting before 2032 arrives. Neither strategy is clearly superior for every individual. The right choice depends on your health status, your other sources of income, and your own honest assessment of what you believe Congress will realistically accomplish. But you deserve to be making that decision armed with accurate, complete information, and that is exactly what this report delivers. Now let's shift to the second piece of news. This one came out yesterday, Thursday, June 13th, and it's based on May inflation data published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Every year, the Social Security Administration announces the upcoming year's cost of living adjustment in October. That adjustment is calculated using the CPI-W, which stands for the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners, and it's measured specifically during the months of July, August, and September. The official 2027 COLA won't be formally announced until this coming October, but independent researchers and policy analysts track the monthly inflation data as it rolls in and publish early projections throughout the year, giving retirees a sense of which direction things are heading before the official number arrives. This week, those early projections jumped considerably. As of May 2026, the CPI-W is running at approximately 4.4% on a year-over-year basis. That represents the highest reading recorded in 3 years, driven primarily by surging energy costs. Gasoline and utility prices have climbed sharply due to ongoing geopolitical pressures, and the cost of food continues to rise faster than the broader headline inflation numbers tend to reflect. Mary Johnson, an independent analyst who specializes in Social Security and Medicare policy and has followed COLA calculations for several decades, updated her official estimate on Thursday to 4.7% and indicated there is a meaningful probability the figure could move even higher as additional monthly data continues arriving. The Senior Citizens League, a nonpartisan advocacy organization representing older Americans, is currently projecting the 2027 adjustment at 3.8%. To give those numbers some useful context, the 2026 COLA came in at 2.5%, which added roughly $56 to the average monthly benefit check. A 4.7% COLA applied in 2027 would add approximately $98 to the average monthly benefit, which is nearly twice the dollar increase retirees received this year. On a monthly benefit of $2,500, that adjustment would add $117 per month. For someone collecting $1,500, it would add $70 each month. Now here's the important nuance I really want you to hold on to, because this is the piece I want you to actually remember when you walk away from this video. A larger COLA sounds like terrific news, and measured purely in dollar terms it is. But a higher COLA is also a direct reflection of the fact that inflation is accelerating more rapidly than it was previously. The 2.5% COLA you started receiving in January of 2026 raised your average monthly benefit by around $56. But Johnson's analysis estimates that at current May inflation levels, it is actually costing you approximately $94 more per month just to maintain the exact same purchasing power you had 1 year ago. Your check increased by $56. Your costs went up by $94. The difference between those two figures represents the purchasing power that is quietly being eroded from seniors' budgets every single month. That gap is the structural problem that a higher 2027 COLA will only partially close. Receiving more dollars in your check is clearly better than receiving fewer. But if the price of groceries, energy, and healthcare continues rising faster than the annual adjustment can compensate for, more retirees end up financially behind despite getting an increase. According to a survey published this week by the Senior Citizens League, 44% of retirees, representing approximately 24.8 million Americans, now rely on Social Security as their sole source of income. That figure was 39% just 1 year ago. In that context, the gap between what the COLA covers and what actual inflation is costing people matters tremendously and cannot be understated. The practical takeaway when it comes to the COLA is this. The 2027 cost of living adjustment is on track to be substantially larger than what retirees received this year. That is genuinely good news in terms of dollar amounts. However, it is not a reason to make any significant immediate financial decisions because the official figure will not be finalized until October, and 5 additional months of inflation data, most critically July, August, and September, will ultimately determine what that final number looks like. If the current inflationary trend holds steady through those months, the adjustment will be a meaningful one. If energy prices level off or decline, the final number could come in below current projections. Keep an eye out for the official announcement this October. In the meantime, understanding that the trajectory is currently pointing upward is valuable context for any financial planning conversations or decisions you're navigating at this point in the year. So, here is this week's full summary. The 2026 Trustees Report, released June 9th, moved the projected Social Security Trust Fund depletion date forward to the fourth quarter of 2032, one full quarter earlier than last year's projection indicated. If Congress fails to act before that deadline arrives, benefits would face an automatic reduction of 22% applied equally to every recipient. The senior tax relief provisions included in the One Big Beautiful Bill contributed to this accelerated timeline by reducing the volume of tax revenue cycling back into the trust fund. Nothing changes for you today, but the window available for gradual, manageable congressional reform is now officially less than 7 years wide. And the 2027 COLA is currently being projected somewhere between 3.8% and 4.7%, based on May inflation figures, which would nearly double the dollar increase retirees saw this year. But the official number remains months away from being set, and it reflects an inflationary environment that is already compressing seniors' purchasing power more quickly than most annual adjustments are able to fully offset. Subscribe and share this with someone in your life who depends on Social Security.